Good evening all to the 82nd session of the Weekly Huddle. I'm your host Anup Agrawal, and joining me today is my friend and co-host Praneeth. We both work as cardiologists at Care Hospital, Banjara Hills. You all are quite familiar with the huddle format, where we typically take clinical cases or common questions that we see in our clinical practice and give it a little bit of semi-formal discussion on this platform. The idea is to share our thoughts rather than talk very deep into science, and come up with ideas which are more pragmatic and more practical to implement in our daily life. We do this every Wednesday at 7 p.m. We end up starting about 3-4 minutes late every time. We try to accommodate as many people who can join in the first few minutes. Today is our 82nd episode, and today we are talking about protein supplements. So the case in discussion is this 26-year-old male. He actually came to me with the main question that whether he should get COVID vaccine or not, and just understanding the pros and cons of it. But also, while talking about it, he asked that he has recently joined gym for resistance training. He had been pretty much health conscious for quite some time, and he had been participating in gym for a few years now, but now he's seriously considering resistance training for muscle building. And his colleagues have been suggesting him to use protein supplements so that will aid in his goal, which is to build up some muscle bulk. So his queries were particularly related to that, because he wanted to make sure whatever he is doing is within the realm of science and what medical guidelines would recommend. So that's what we are trying to discuss today. What is the science behind protein supplements? Is it something that we should advocate people taking, particularly those people who are actively looking for a positive nitrogen balance, if I may? And then what kind of protein supplement do we recommend if we do end up recommending? Is there any difference between animal-based protein versus plant-based proteins? And are there any safety concerns with these protein supplements, particularly the additives that often become a part of these so-called bodybuilding protein supplements? So we'll try to discuss on these four aspects. And I'll start with my colleague Praneeth, and then we'll ask my attendees for their opinion. I have asked Dr. Ravinder and Dr. Radha to join me to give their thought process regarding this. And if Dr. Hussain joins us, who leads the physiotherapy program in our hospital, then we'll get some of his insight as well. So Praneeth, I'll start with you. This guy comes to you, young, healthy adult, no comorbidities, inquires about these aspects. Walk us through. He's a non-vegetarian. He can eat whatever you want him to. So walk him through what kind of protein supplement he can take, whether he should even take it or not.
Right. So good evening, everyone. I'll give my take on this patient. So I would suggest him to kind of rely on natural food supplements in the form of eating, increasing the protein in his diet. There are protein-rich foods, in my opinion, which he can increase consumption, cut down on the amount of carbohydrates, and increase the amount of protein in his diet. Watch for his calories while he is doing it. When I talk about increasing the protein content in his food, protein-rich foods, and now that you said he takes mixed diet, predominantly protein-rich foods being meat, egg, and those are the two things. And from when we talk about plant-based proteins, including all forms of dal, paneer, these, in my opinion, are high protein foods. So I would ask him to kind of increase the quantity, understanding that proteins are not as palatable as the carbohydrates that we consume. As you are increasing these protein-rich foods, I would try to ask him to avoid taking supplements, the protein powders, which are there, particularly the protein powders. In my opinion, again, I am here to learn on these things, but in my opinion, there is a concern on additives being added, particularly the anabolic steroids, which kind of increases the bulk which is desired, particularly for someone who is an gym enthusiast who wants to build the muscle. So I would kind of suggest him to restrict more to natural foods rather than taking these protein powders or the boxes that are commonly available in pharmacies and other things. And most important thing is the stimulus to build muscle will be the exercise which he is doing. As you increase the weight and you balance it with the diet, I think he should be able to reach his goals of increasing the diet. So these are my takes on this patient. Anup. Any questions I can answer?
Praneeth, I'm sure you prescribe protein supplements to your recovering patients. Do you think those protein supplements can be taken by these guys, or that's too morbid to be taken by healthy individuals?
So most of these recovering patients, their appetite is lost and they want to kind of take them. But for someone who is healthy adult, who is able to take large quantities of food, and then I would recommend him to take a natural thing. But the content is the same, so he can take these supplements as well, the kind of those biscuits or those powders. So to answer your question, yes, they can take, but in general, I haven't recommended someone for this purpose. It's mostly for the recovering patients.
Okay, Praneeth, I'll continue my discussion with the rest of my attendees. And because today's topic is more general in nature, I'm going to take frequent pauses in between and invite anyone of your thought process. And you can please feel free to either unmute yourself or raise your hand if you have any thoughts or anything to add, particularly on the topic that is being discussed at that point. So, Praneeth, just to give you, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate in terms of protein supplement in these guys. So when we are talking about usual protein requirement, then we are talking about 1 milligram per kilogram of protein per day that a person should consume. So let's say if this gentleman is 65 or 70 kilogram, then you're talking about a 65 to 70 grams of protein per day. And that is give or take what you get from a 2000 or 2500 calorie diet per day. People who are trying to build their muscle, their protein requirement may go anyway from 1.5 to 2 grams per kilogram per day. And depending upon what their aim is, it may even be actually higher than that. While asking to eat more protein in their usual diet is always a good idea, I'm always skeptical in terms of how much people can eat extra protein to get that 2 or 2.5 gram per kilogram per day. Because as you rightly said, protein is not palatable. So every gram of protein that you add, now you will be adding more carbohydrate and fat with that. My fear is that these people, they may end up consuming 3,500-4,000 calories per day, maybe even more than that. Which is going to just add up to the obesity on the top of giving them that extra protein. So while the natural intake certainly seems to be a very reasonable aspect, I have my own skepticism in terms of how much a person can eat in the usual food so that he or she only gets protein and not get the added burden of carbohydrate and fat and whatnot. So that's just my take, being the other side of it. In terms of why I would favor giving them supplements rather than just relying upon a natural diet or so. I'm going to proceed with some of my attendees here. And we have Dr. Satyanarayana, sir. I'll come to you later. Let me just ask a few more opinion. Praveen is here with us. Praveen, I hope you are able to hear me. If you are, I would like to get your impression on today's topic.
Good evening, sir. Sir, this topic I am eagerly waiting to learn rather than that of my opinion. If a patient of this comes, I would suggest him to take the natural protein-rich foods. Why? Because whatever the protein supplements they give, they are all steroid. They are added with steroids and all that. So I have no idea, sir.
Right. So, Praveen, I hear you. And I think this was one topic that me and Praneeth were discussing the other day about anabolic steroid content in these supplements. And truly speaking, the kind of protein supplement that we are talking about are those boxes which has got this bodybuilding, which if you look at their ingredients, most of them, they wouldn't say they have steroids. Now, the question is whether steroid is adulterated or mixed into that, but they're not labeling it like that. That is a classic fraud. And if there is fraud in the market, that of course, that is something which goes beyond our control. But unless you are consuming product which are marketed, which are labeled as contains anabolic steroid, just taking routine protein supplement like whey protein for that matter, unless it has got explicitly written that it has got anabolic steroid, if somebody is mixing it without labeling, that I would love if somebody knows whether that practice is common, aka fraud in that scenario or cheating in that scenario. If that is common, that certainly would be a point of concern, no doubts about it. Dr. Shankar, your impression about today's discussion?
Good evening to all. We can reach the daily protein goals, as I just now alluded to. An ordinary man needs 1 gram per kg body weight, 0.8 grams is also sufficient. 1 gram per kg body weight is a 60 kg man needs 60 grams per day protein. So proteins are they are of prime importance in the nutrition for the body building, in the growth and strength of the muscle. So most people, they can get this enough of protein from their diet. This is my view, because by taking egg in the breakfast, yogurt in the lunch, and nuts for a snack, and lean meat or cooked chicken in the evening, in the night, and a cup of milk in between. So with this diet, we can reach the protein goals of the day. So I therefore encourage a natural dietary protein from the whole foods like nuts, seeds, low-fat dairy products like yogurt, milk, cheese, legumes, fish, poultry, lean meat, and light. So I encourage natural diet only, natural dietary protein. But however, as everybody knows that the sources of diet, the dietary protein are animal sources and plant sources. So in certain situations, we are compelled to use the protein supplements in the form of powders. Patients with reduced appetite, especially in the elderly people, they will have loss of muscle mass also. They don't consume enough of protein. So cancer patients and the post-operative states and burns, pregnant women, and exercisers like this guy is under resistance training exercises. So they need extra allowance of protein diet, especially this guy needs 1.4 to 2 grams per kg body weight. So these protein powders are made up of several sources of plant-based soybeans, peas, rice, potatoes, and animal sources like egg and milk. But these protein powders also contain the added sugars are there, and they contain they increase the calories, and artificial flavors also added to these powders. The toxic chemicals also, if we analyze, the toxic chemicals also mixed with these powders. So that's why before we choose any powder, protein supplement, I go for, first of all, you should not have a liver or kidney disease, because where the protein is restricted. And the bottle, the pack should contain a third-party verification symbol in the form of a GMP, USP, NSF. So the third third-party verification symbol should be there. And whenever the patient consumes these powders, they contain egg or milk protein. So there may be history of if egg or protein, milk protein allergy, they should avoid. And lactose intolerance, because they contain milk proteins, whey protein or casein protein. So lactose intolerance will be there. So we should take a history of lactose intolerance. So better he should buy a sample of this powder pack and try whether it is suitable to his body or not. And select unflavored most of the times, but if at all, for the tasty sake, vanilla or chocolate taste can be taken, chocolate flavor. And vegan protein powders, as everybody knows, that we should opt for one that mixes multiple sources of protein like soy, rice, pea, legumes. So that's why before selecting a protein supplement, in certain circumstances, in this case where he is undergoing a resistance training exercises, he needs, apart from daily dietary protein, he needs protein supplements. I don't suggest, but here I am compelled to use these protein supplements in this guy. But at the same time, when we prescribe protein supplements, after going through these tips and tricks how to select a protein powder, but these protein powders are not without any side effects. As just now alluded to, because of milk allergies or the lactose intolerance, the patient may have bloating, gas trouble, and sometimes indigestion, the dyspepsia, and diarrhea most of the times. Because of added sugars and calories, there may be weight gain, and unhealthy spike in the blood sugars also will be noted when they consume these powders. And these powders also contain, as I mentioned, the toxins in the form of heavy metals like lead, arsenic, cadmium, mercury. So one more important one is the BPA, the bisphenol A, which is used in the plastics. That is also one of the contaminants in these powders. So sometimes pesticides also will be there in these powders. So all these contaminants, they may give rise to increased incidence of cancer and other health hazards. So this is first I preferably go for dietary protein intake, but if he doesn't meet the goals to that extent of 1.4 to 2 grams per kg body weight, then we go for, in compelled situations, for protein supplements. The protein supplements, how to select that protein supplements I alluded to, and the protein supplements, what are the side effects with the protein supplements, I have already mentioned. So this is regarding the case what I learned. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. A lot of points I think that we can take home. I'll get a doctor's perspective on this. We have Dr. Satyanarayana with us. He has expertise in body metabolics and how dietary interaction with the human body is. So, Dr. Satyanarayan, you have got this patient who comes to your OPD who is asking about protein supplement. How would you guide him and how would you guide us regarding this thing, sir?
Yeah. Thanks for asking my opinion. First of all, I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
sir, you are audible.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, the first and foremost thing, there are a couple of issues. Many of the people, they highlighted. One important thing is most of us will be carried whenever somebody is doing a strength training. There are two aspects about that one. Is he looking for the strength of the muscle or hypertrophy of the muscle? That is one aspect. If hypertrophy is concerned, there is a little bit different concerns. And if it is a strength is the one, then one need not be worried so much about the hypertrophy part, and we can advise that one. Second important point here, what we have to consider is everybody is talking about 1 gram per kg body weight or 1.5, whatever may be the one. The most important thing is one should not take into consideration of the present body weight. They have to consider every time whenever measuring, they have to take a lean body mass. Lean body mass means we have got a body mass because of the muscle group and also the bone density, and also the other one is the fat content. If you remove the fat content, fat percentage of the body composition, then we will get the without fat, and that is what we call is the lean body mass. So the most of the, particularly Philip Stewart, who has done a lot of extensive research on this protein metabolism, and Michael Yates, the two people whom I follow, according to them, the lean body mass we have to take. And second is the age group. And in the age group, anybody more than 55 years age probably require higher than those people who are in the middle age group. Similarly, the younger age group who are still developing the growth factors or their growth hormone, all those people has to be considered differently, particularly sarcopenia if it is present according to the body composition. And then we have to consider the lean body mass, and then we have to give the protein. As far as the protein and muscle hypertrophy or a muscle strength is concerned, the only one protein is a branch chain amino acids. So these are the 3 branch chain amino acids we have got: leucine, isoleucine, and valine, and of which the leucine is the most important, and everybody considers the leucine is the one which helps, and this is the one which is stimulate the insulin-like growth factor 1, not insulin growth factor like IGF-1, this is called, this is being stimulated. The IGF-1 and also the mTOR, there are the 2 pathways in which the muscle building occurs. So these 2 things will be highly sensitive with the leucine. But at the same time, if the leucine in the presence of the insulin, which is stimulated by the carbohydrates, if it is present, the IGF will be misdirected and it will not help to produce the muscle, the hypertrophy, and it will not be much useful, IGF-1. So one has to make it very clear, the protein content when you are giving, it should be eliminated all the carbohydrates. If you give more amount of the carbohydrates, more than about, depends upon his insulin sensitivity and his insulin resistance, we can decide how much of a grams of protein he can tolerate, how much of a carbohydrates he can tolerate. So based on that one composition we can give. As far as the plant proteins are concerned, they are not complete, total, all the essential amino acids are not there. Particularly branch chain amino acids are absent in the plant products. So one has to be extra careful when they are subscribing plant products. The most of the people, they combine that one, even like vegetarians, unless they combine rice with a dal, they will not get all the 9 essential amino acids. If they take only one aspect about that one, they will always have a deficit about the essential amino acids, particularly the branch chain amino acids. Whereas one egg contains all the branch chain amino acids that are required for the bodybuilding, and heavily they can rely on the eggs. As far as the plant products are concerned, many people, they use soya and soya products. And soya products, the one disadvantage with this one is it contains like a polyunsaturated fatty acids, particularly the omega-6. The omega-6 and omega-3, the ratio is very, very important. If the omega-6 ratio to the omega-3 exceeds more than 4:1, that works as like a pro-inflammatory. Whereas omega-3 is to omega-6 1:1 or less than 4:1, then it works as a anti-inflammatory. So whenever you are giving some kind of a plant products, you have to take into consideration about how much of the omega acids are there, particularly the omega-6, and you have to see that one. If required, we can measure the omega-3 index. If it is the 3 index is more than 8, probably you have to see that one, what is the source of omega-6, particularly the seed oils. If they are using seed oils like canola, sunflower, safflower, the so-called heart healthy acids, they contain polyunsaturated fatty acids, particularly omega-6. The reason why these one is they will reduce LDL. So that's the reason why they recommend most of the times if there's somebody LDL is higher. For in case this particular sports person, if he doesn't have much of LDL, he need not worry about seed oils and he can use the butter, ghee and other things like red meat. Particularly the beef meat and in the pork, these are the ones which contain the branched chain amino acids at higher proportions when compared to any other things. So we strongly recommend animal proteins. Even those people, vegetarians, lucky enough because they take the milk products like cheese and casein and other things will be there. They are, though they are inferior, but they are better than the ordinary plant products. So in that sense, the milk and milk products, you have to consider there is a liquid meat of the animal. So in that way, then they are having an animal component. That's the reason why they will be developing some sort of a no deficits, and also they can keep up their bodybuilding. So considering all these things, lean body mass, we have to first identify in any simple body composition, they can get it. Next, they can estimate their lipid profiles. If there are not much of LDL is not the consideration for that individual. If the triglycerides are higher than 100, they have to drastically cut down the carbohydrates component of their food. If they are less than triglycerides without any supplementation of the statin drugs, if they're less than 100, probably they can mix with the carbohydrate and then the protein. Otherwise, we strongly recommend no carbohydrates, protein plus fat we can recommend. That is the natural form of the most of the protein from the animal sources. An animal source doesn't contain any carbohydrates, almost zero, including egg or chicken or the lamb or any other meat. So in that way, that's how we'll be choosing. For him, I'll make a profile, body composition, lipid profile, and also HbA1c and also the blood sugar. Based on that one, how much carbohydrates I can decide, I'll be deciding about that. I hope I got some clear answer for you.
Thank you, sir. You did provide a lot of answers, but a lot of what you said, I think we will have to go back to the recording and slowly listen every statement and every word you said so that we can process it properly. I have a few questions for you before I head on to Dr. Radha for her impression. My first question to you is, let's say this patient comes to my OPD, I work in CARE Hospital. How do I find out what is his lean body weight?
Yeah, simple thing is if you spend about 3,000 rupees, today you have got so many weighing scales which will tell you the body composition. Otherwise, refer to your endocrinology or obesity clinic. They measure constantly about these things. And even in the separate laboratories are there in the Hyderabad city where they give you the body composition. If any simple thing is, if you want to ask, take a rope that is equal to his height. Suppose if somebody is 168 centimeters, take a rope of 168 centimeters, make it 50%, that is going to be a 74 or something like that, 50% of his height. And then the wrap around his umbilicus. If the both ends are not meeting, that means he has got excess amount of body fat. If the both ends are meeting, that means he doesn't have excess fat. And check whether the abdominal ultrasound, if he has got a fatty liver, that means already he has got an excess amount of fat. These two tools are available for you. One is body composition meter. Even a simple you can acquire from the Amazon, you can get it. And second thing is ultrasound is available, and make sure that he doesn't have any fatty liver. If he has got a fatty liver, that indicates he is not going to tolerate triglycerides.
And sir, these 3,000 rupees machine, are they pretty reliable? Like I'm sure they are not very accurate, but are they good enough?
No, they're good enough. One important thing is the reliability is concerned. The best of best, we are not going to get it. The
Right.
one advantage with this machine is, suppose, okay, you know that one, it is not accurate. It is accurate up to 85%. Okay, take it for granted. Today you have taken that one. After 2 weeks of training, your body mass is about somewhere 28% fat. So next 2 weeks, if it is come down to 22%, there is a reduction of the fat mass 6%. At least that is reliable, even though both readings are wrong. But still the reduction is the same wrong machine we are using. So the same wrong readings are interpreted in everywhere. So they get neutralized. But the reduction in that one is the real, whether you do it a most accurate machine or a bot part. That is one what you recommend, bot part. That is a machine that you can sit inside that one. They make lots of measurements. Or you have to do it from the nuclear magnetic resonance DEXA scans. That also gives you the body composition. Every time we need not go through that one. In case if you are really worried to know how much it is wrong, once you can get a DEXA scan, and then based on that one, we can decide.
Perfect. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, one last question. Let's say if this patient were to be vegetarian and still wants to get muscle hypertrophied.
Yeah.
What are the dietary options that he has?
Yeah, the vegetarians that traditionally, conventionally, most of them are heavily dependent on the beans. So we can give the legumes and then the beans, lentils and then these things. And also apart from that, not many people from Andhra are allowed to have a soya and soya products because they're tasteless. And then some people may take it like a soya products. But one caveat with that one is be careful with a polyunsaturated omega-6 in that one. Otherwise, just like any legumes and like lentils, peanuts are there, the chia seeds are there, flax seeds are there, and also the many other seeds, pumpkin seeds are there, sunflower seeds are there, many nuts are there, when which for vegetarians, they can compensate all the essential fatty acids that are there in the non-animal protein. But for those people, if they have got a strict emotional bondage only to the plant products, I recommend all these kind of nuts, but not the cashew nuts. Cashew nuts also contains proteins, but the problem is they contain a lot of carbohydrates. So that's the reason why I cut down that one. And other nuts are the macadamia nuts are there. Macadamia nuts are very good and least amount of carbohydrates. They can choose this kind of a seeds and then the nuts.
Perfect. Thank you so much, sir. May I ask Dr. Radha for her comments, ma'am? Satyanarayan sir has already set the stage for the dietary supplements in healthy individuals who want to build muscle. Particularly, these are not patients who are recovering. They are pretty healthy, active, young adults who want to build their muscle. Question to you with regard to today's discussion is, should we be routinely prescribing protein supplements to them? What kind of protein supplement? Should it be animal versus plant-based? And one of the discussion that we had before you joined was mislabeling of these supplements, where let's say you are buying whey protein, but containing inside it are androgens, which is not labeled or mislabeled. Is that kind of fraud very common in the Indian context or in the market? Or most of the products which are steroid based, they actually write that it is steroid based. So we can have the discussion around this topic. Dr. Radha, you can take over from
here. Before I can actually comment on all this and take part in the discussion, I'm really sorry for joining late. I had a patient, so I had to finish that and then join in. Okay. See, coming to supplements or coming to a high protein advice for somebody who is going in for resistance exercise, what is most important is what is the kind or what is the degree of exercise that the person is undergoing, point one. What is the age group? And so that is what, and what is the regular intake of the diet? That is important. So first, we have to know the intensity. That is primarily, which will tell us whether we have to dictate 1.2, 1.5 or 1.8 grams per kg body weight, or sometimes even go up to 2 grams per kg body weight. Okay, so this will tell us primarily that. And then age is another factor. Age combined with intensity is another factor which will tell us what is the level of protein recommendation that have to be done for these individuals who want to do resistant exercise to build muscle. And thirdly, which is most important, review the present diet, what the patient is, or the person is having. I'm sorry for saying the patient. Review the diet. Is it adequate enough? If it is adequate, what percentage of the protein recommendation is the diet able to meet? Vegetarian, non-vegetarian, both ends. It is easy for a non-vegetarian to meet the protein targets. It's a little difficult for vegetarians to meet the protein targets, although you are like what Dr. Satnarayana and Dr. Shankar have told, that yes, you can go into nuts, you can go into pulses, you can go into so many varieties, but then there is one component which is called as the bioavailability. Okay, so what happens is, in all plant-based foods, the bioavailability is only up to about 50 to maximum 55%. The rest goes as a waste. The best possible protein is whey protein or milk protein, but then again, that comes with an attachment. The greater the amount of milk protein that you're taking, the higher is the amount of saturated fat. So there comes a restriction. Then again, eggs are a source, because there are individuals who can be vegetarians, but then on egg, they don't mind. So what we do is we strike a balance. We tell them that you can eat even up to 6 to 8 egg whites, but restrict on the yolks because of the cholesterol component. That's one thing. For non-vegetarians, yes, every 100 grams of any fleshy food will give you at least 20 grams of protein. So, you have to meet how many grams of non-vegetarian or fleshy foods that this person can take, is something that we strike a balance in making a balanced diet for these people. That is one part of the diet. But what is most essential is, a supplement is essential for these individuals who are getting into resistance exercise, whether they are vegetarians or non-vegetarians. It could be one time, it could be 2 times too, depending on, again, the intensity of exercise that they are doing. Because what happens is, most of these products, they are FDA regulated, they are FSSAI regulated. You just have to know they have a code where you can check when it is prepared, how it is prepared. It has a quality standard. So, having these steroids added to it is not very often. I've not heard anybody do that unless the individuals take it separately. That is point one side. Because see, if you take me alone, I'm sorry, I'm using me as an example. I've been using a supplement, although I'm a non-vegetarian. I eat non-veg every day. I eat at least 3 eggs every day, egg whites. Okay, but I'm on a supplement, 1 scoop every day for the past 25 years, because now in my 50s, I run 10 kilometers every day. So I need it. So that's how it is generally done. But you need to know quality products. You need to spend time in understanding what this product is, read the labels, and then go ahead, start using it. What happens to these products is, of course, you get vegetarian based, but then whey is also considered vegetarian. You can always go ahead taking that vegetarian based protein. They come with added artificial sugars. That is the only problem that I always think on, is the gut microbiome over a period of time changes with use of artificial sweeteners. But otherwise, they all come with just very low calorie, because no added sugars, only an artificial supplement is added, and they come with good amount of 1 scoop, giving you somewhere around, again, 20 to 25 grams. These go in by the normal recommendation, or resistant training or sports recommendation, where they say that whatever is the recommendation of protein at any given time, the amount of protein that the body can absorb is only 25 grams. That is why all these products are regulated that 1 scoop maximum will give you 20 or 25 grams of protein at a given time. You can look at any product, but that will give you only that, because that is the recommendation. It's an international recommendation that it is that any meal you eat a breakfast, then you have to target 20 to 25 grams, whether it is natural or with a supplement. You need to eat more frequently, every 2 hours, every 3 hours, to meet that kind of protein requirement. If you're saying whatever is the ideal body weight into 2 grams per kg body weight. Then you need to meet those targets with the regular diet. That is one. Yes, you need to strike a balance between what is the kind of protein. There are some individuals where they would actually get into taking BCAA, branch chain amino acids. Yes, as Sir has said, it does help in improving muscle gain, or by nature or by the nature of exercise itself. If you are able to regulate it with a correct diet and you continuously do weights or resistant training, the muscle will automatically grow. That is for sure. With over a time, you don't need BCAA. BCAA does improve the rate at which the muscle will grow, possibly. But then there are many whom I counsel regularly, and I do prescribe a supplement, but I don't really encourage them to use BCAA unless they are there taking in some sports activity. Then yes. If it is regular resistant training just for body, having a good body, then you don't need BCAA. And the regular requirement of minimum requirement of BCAA does come if you strike a balance with a good diet. It is coming from the food sources, and I think that should be doing fine. So this is how it goes. The greater the amount of exercise, the greater is the utilization of protein, and the greater is the growth of muscle. That is one part. Another part, as Sir has said about body composition analysis, yes, the latest trend is all about using a bioimpedance analyzer. There are many setups where you do have this, but what is important and what you need to educate them is the regular ones don't give you an accurate picture. Going for analysis, same money, but going for analysis which gives you what is called as a face angle. Okay, a face angle analysis gives you what is your composition of fluid or water in comparison to your fat and your muscle. So that gives you an appropriate picture of where you are. Then taking just about a rough figure of what is your fat percentage, muscle percentage, that keeps changing as your BMI changes. Some individuals who have good muscle, they have done it over a few months, and then they take the body fat analyzer or the body analyzer that is there regularly, and their BMI anyway is going to be high because they have built muscle over a time. They have built weight. So it will show high, which is not right. But the one which has face angle is more or less accurate. This we do use in medical papers, in patients, in even patients with renal failure, liver failure. Bioimpedance analysis with face angle is being regularly used. So that's the best thing. But the gold standard is a DEXA. You can always go in for a DEXA to get a baseline value, and then following that, you can do the bioimpedance analysis. I think these are my inputs. Any comment, any discussion, or maybe I've missed on something and I'm willing to listen to.
Ma'am, I don't think I'll be adding on what you said. I'm just going to be questioning all the things that you have mentioned for our own clarification.
Yes.
Number one, you mentioned is this face angle along with bioimpedance. What kind of machine we use for this face angle assessment?
It's the same machine, but it is a high-end one.
I see.
Same machine. Where Seca is there, and even there's another brand also. 2 brands are there where they do give you face angle thing.
Will you be able to share those links on
yes,
the WhatsApp?
I would do that.
Group?
In fact, I think in care, Dr. Reddy is aware. Dr. Ravinder,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. He has got that machine. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that we just have to check whether that has face angle.
Okay.
In body is the other one.
Sure.
So you share the numbers so that you can always ask for them, and that is really useful. You can use it even in cardiac patients. You can use it in, to identify sarcopenia. You can identify in liver patients. You can do research also.
Sure. If you could just share that name or model or
I
whatever,
would do that.
we will make ourselves familiar with that kind of equipment at least.
Yes.
Even if we don't have it in our hospital, at least we can make ourselves familiar with it.
Yes.
Okay. Then the question comes, how easy it is in the current market to find 100% whey protein? Is it readily available?
It is very easy. It is very easy. See, I'm sorry, but I'm going to use the brands. See, it all depends on whether your supplements contain what is called as whey isolate or a whey concentrate. Okay, there is a little difference. And then you have to know what is the quality of that whey that they are using. So depending on that, the cost is there. So the best whey protein product that you generally get is Isopure. Okay, which does come, and that's way too expensive, but then yes, that's really a good, very good quality. That is one. But then there are brands where they just give you unflavored, just whey protein. What you can do is, to that, you can add a little bit of vanilla, natural vanilla, little cinnamon powder, and then make your own supplement instead of having an artificial sweetener and a coloring agent added to it. That also can be done. There are brands which will just give you nice FSSAI regulated whey protein, plain, unflavored product. There are no micronutrients also added to it. It's just plain whey protein powder, which all these medical companies buy, and then they mix it and then they give their own brand. You can always buy that and make your own concoction in the house. Like for example, if you take me, sometimes I make a smoothie with the whey protein, where I add nuts, I add cinnamon powder, I add a date, and then I add little probiotic yogurt. You get Nestle probiotic yogurt, which is unflavored. You just take that and then add your supplement and make a nice smoothie out of it. You can have it like that. But ideas are something that comes with the discussion with that particular and what are the tastes and things like that. But you can always, it's very easy.
Right.
Is something which is very, very common. On is in vogue now. There are many clients who are going in for on. So these are products which regularly maintain their standards, quality standards.
Ma'am, again, to ask you the favor, the good quality way, that the name that you mentioned, if you could also share that on our group so that
Sure.
we can
I'll do.
familiarize ourselves with that. Third
Yes.
question is, routinely, and this is more of a general question than what I typically would ask. You said that most of these supplements, they are FSSAI regulated. If I
Yes.
go to a store currently,
Yes.
will I find more steroid infused products these days, or will I find less, or will I find products which are typically not steroid infused? What is more common in the market these days?
See, to be really truthful, no, I have not come across any of my client telling me that it is steroid infused
I see.
unless they take it separately. Yes, there is one weightlifting person who comes to me and he takes on his own. It is not a part of the supplement, but then he does take a steroid on its own.
Right.
So generally it is that. I have not come across any brand where it is steroid induced, but then possibly maybe I'm less aware. But then I prescribe brands which I know there is a quality standard, so that I'm sure that they maintain what they claim. So maybe that's why I'm unaware.
Right. And then the last question from my side before I go to the chat box is, you said BCA. Give us some familiarity about how we can guide our patients to procure BCA products. Are there like names and stuff?
Yeah, you just type in BCA supplements, you'll get hundreds of them.
I see.
It's just one scoop you have to take per day. It will like just your cranberry juice or just a clear juice that it will form. You'll get strawberry color, strawberry flavor, different flavors, whichever flavor you like. And you just take one scoop. Generally, it is taken as a pre-workout.
Right.
And
And
it is taken as a post-workout.
And even for BCA, do you have favorites in terms of what you think are better regulated or better quality?
You do get in Muscle Blaze, where that it is called BCA Gold Muscle Blaze, where they say it has a little more extra quantity of BCA than the others, and some of them have it with omega. So you just have Muscle Blaze is one common thing that you can actually go in for a BCA product.
Now I'm going to go to the chat box. What people have asked in the chat box. One is there an association with high protein intake and development of CKD? Do you know if I give my patient high protein, they will develop CKD?
Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yeah. I didn't hear the question.
The question is association of high protein intake and developing CKD. Is there something like that?
Actually, no. If
Okay.
you're able to, drink good, hydrate yourself well, not get into dehydration, do exercise, that would not have a negative impact unless, again, what is your lipid parameters? How are you maintaining your own organ health? And then I don't think that will lead you to the best possible. In fact, you can always get in touch with Dr. Rajiv, who's a nephrologist at Sunshine Hospital. He's into this weight training for the past 4 years. He is into supplements. He's into everything. He takes, in fact, 2.5 grams per kg body weight of protein every day. And in fact, I've been his dietitian for the past 6 years, and he is pretty good. He's a nephrologist himself.
Another question that comes is, what is to be asked in the DEXA scan for body fat analysis? I'm guessing that you just order a DEXA scan for body fat analysis. I'm guessing.
Yes.
That is what you
They
would
do that. They do that. Yes.
Right. And then the question is there a website, like you mentioned, I think you briefly touched upon this. Is there a website where somebody can go and check the genuinity of the protein supplement that they're taking?
Yes. They have a code. See, once you open the lid, there is a seal. On the seal, there is one small slip of item which tells you the code of that tin or that container. That code, you need to go to that website and type. They will tell you the genuinity.
And that website is not on a payroll of that company, I'm guessing. That's a regulated website.
No, that's a regulated one.
Okay. Then another question that comes is, what are the options for vegetarian? I think that question is answered. How many eggs per day? I think that also you have answered. 6 to 8 egg whites per day is good, right?
Yes.
I think we have all the questions on the chat box.
Sometimes you need to make a balance between vegetarian. Like sometimes, what I tell patients is they can have around 200 to 250 grams of broccoli, steamed broccoli. That's like a miracle vegetable where it does give you a good amount of protein, lots of soluble fiber, and good amount of micronutrients. So, you need to kind of feed the gut and also feed the different kinds of protein each time. So that comes with who the person is. And, I think I told this before, each of my counseling sessions are an hour, wherein I get to know who this patient is and then advise what is going to be applicable for that patient. And they really will follow it to the dot because it's theirs. So that is what matters. That's what a dietitian has to do.
Perfect. Thank you, ma'am. The session is open for discussion. If anybody has got any thoughts, and while you gather any questions that you may have, I invite Dr. Somaraju for his comments about today's discussion. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Anup. Good evening to all of you, and it was a very useful session. And I'm not a dietitian or a specialist. I'm just a physician cardiologist. Having said that, while we are talking about these, say, the type of patients that we are talking about, I have nothing much to add. But if you don't misunderstand me, it is, though it's not out of the area, when you are talking about this, I just want all of us to remind ourselves that 7,000 Indians die daily due to hunger. 25 lakh Indians die every year because of hunger. And 825 million, 1 in 9, go to bed on an empty stomach each night. So those things bother me also. So while we are dealing with different type of people, but we should also be aware of the other end of the problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. While your comment was off the topic, I do understand the sentiment behind it. And I myself often say that while I do TAVR, which is a 25-30 lakh rupees procedure per patient, I have to justify using that much of resource in one person. And to overcome that guilt, I take part in lot of primary care, in lot of cardiac prevention, in lot of discussion like these, which we have been doing it for almost 2 years now, where we talk about everything as basic as this rather than advanced cardiology, because I do realize that we can't just be focused on the fancy aspect of it, because the ground reality at times hits upon us. And while we try to be specialist, while we try to talk about all this, we do have to understand and appreciate the other side of our community or our country. And definitely each one of us, I'm sure we are contributing in our own way to try to help our microenvironment around us. And talking about that, there is one topic that I wanted to discuss on the weekly huddle. And again, I'm digressing from the same thing, but I think this is the correct pause point for me to discuss this. In the future, maybe in a month or so, I still couldn't figure out how to design a huddle topic for this. But at some point, I do want to talk about how we as a physician within our microenvironment, how are we handling or solving the social determinants of health around us. And by social determinants, I mean what Somaraju sir said, be it hunger, be it poverty, be it lack of education, be it lack of access to healthcare or whatnot, because these things, truly speaking, in the Indian context and few other countries, are far more risk factor for diseases than our traditional risk factors like diabetes or hypertension or smoking or whatnot. A hungry person or a person who is not able to gain healthy food has got higher risk of developing problems than somebody who has got a disease or hypertension for that matter that we're treating. So at some point, I would like to discuss with my huddle attendees, what are we doing and how can we participate to improve or modify the social determinants of health around us, understanding that each one of us have our own job responsibilities. So I'm sure I wouldn't expect anybody to leave their home and go out in the community to teach people or to distribute food or whatnot, or to employ 100 people around them. I don't think that those things are practically feasible, at least to working population like us. But I'm sure each one of us in our own way can contribute to that. So Somaraju sir, I am trying to find a way how I can introduce this in one of the huddle discussion. And I really hope that we discuss that part as well. Anybody else?
Yes, sir. I brought out this issue, but I fully realize that I am also part of the problem like all of us, all our careers. And it's very nice of you that we are going to discuss this issue at some point. Thank you.
Sir, I don't think we are part of the problem. I just think that we are other pieces of the puzzle. We don't need to fit in every shoe, but at the same time, I think we should take it to ourselves that a part of our time should be spent on this. Just because we are not actively spending, I don't think that should make us guilty, but certainly not thinking about it is not an option. We should contribute in our own way. There is no doubts about it. Coming back to today's topic, anybody else has got any other questions or comments before we close today's session? If not, Praneeth, your closing comments. I hope we got few of your questions answered. And what would be your take-home point from today's discussion?
Yeah, Anup. Thanks to both Radha and Satyanarayana sir about their extensive discussion on the nitty-gritties of this protein requirement, metabolism, bioavailability, and how do you add it depending on your requirement, what you are doing, what you want to achieve, and what is your levels of activity you need to match it. Definitely a lot of science behind this thing. It's not as simple as I realize. I think you should probably be in touch with a qualified dietitian and work around based on your requirements, and then plan this thing. And simple way is to start at home, starting with the regular things like what has been mentioned, and then when you are trying to go to supplements, probably take an expert guidance, and then you take it forward so that you are not fooling around. I think definitely a lot of thing I should listen to this again to kind of get the grasp of what all has been shared in this session today. Thank you, Anup.
Thank you, Praneeth. And I believe one of the purpose of introducing this on the last week of this new year is also because I'm sure each one of us are going to meet at least one person whom you will find next 1 week taking impossible promise or resolution to hit the gym and do some resistance training and whatnot. So I hope today's discussion will guide you a little bit in answering those questions more scientifically. And you may even share this with your friends and colleagues. I will make sure that this particular session is uploaded in the next 1 day so that at least it is readily available for the prime time, which will be, I believe, next 1 week. Thank you all for attending today's session. And this is the last session of this year. We'll continue it uninterrupted next week as well. And if you have any topic that you think we should discuss in our future session, please WhatsApp me. I'll be happy to include in our future sessions. Thank you all. Good night. We'll see you next Wednesday.